now recording.
Call this meeting to order at 2:03.
All right, Mr. Chairman, if we want to go in order, I have
The adopter truck.
typed up a policy that's in your packet here to review. It's pretty much what we're doing now, except it says only 4 times a year. There's a company in Blackstone that gets it every Friday. Every Friday they get it, and they dispose of stuff that they have. And since I won't name names, but and it's fine. I mean, it's we don't charge or anything, but they are disposing of stuff every week.
What if they end up putting it on the street? I mean, I'm all for the idea,
Right.
because you don't want to overuse it.
Right.
Every week is a little much.
Right, and at 4 times a year, I mean, that's not what we go by now. I mean, people can get it anytime they call if it's available. So that may be something we want to look at if you don't want it, make it 4 times a year. But it's like Philip said, if we don't provide the service, people will throw it on there.
Correct. I mean, I'd even be for, say, 6 times a year and be a little more
I'm gonna say either 6 or 8.
lenient. Yeah, but 52 times a year is a little much.
Could they be like second in line so we give somebody else a chance before, and if they've already used their 6, could they, what it is, they might be using it and somebody else didn't get to it,
The place that uses it every Friday, I don't think they're going to throw it out into the street. But, and I don't guess it's a big deal. Goodwill, they use it every Friday, and I guess they get an overrun of stuff where they don't sell the stuff, so and they get more stuff, so then they decide to. I'm assuming that it's Goodwill stuff that they're throwing in there that
Yeah, when people make donations, I'm sure a lot of it's probably junk. Some of it, so.
But I don't know if we want to limit it to 4 times a year, or if we want to limit it to 8, or just as you call it. As you call it. I mean, if it's available, you get it. I mean, I don't know if y'all want to do it that way or what.
What did Philip have to say about it?
He hasn't commented. He said to let the committee decide.
What did I say about it?
You're on video right now, so.
Okay. I think we need to adopt a truck program. As long as the people are paying for the material inside.
Is there a limit, though, is what
We're
you're...
talking about the
The
limit.
limits.
Oh, we're all for the adoption.
Are we talking about commercial or residential?
Anybody can get it right now.
Anybody can get it. Question that I have, do we want to continue for commercial? I say yes, because
It'll be on your street.
they still got to pay the material. It'll be end up on the shoulder of the road, so I don't think we can exclude. Jennifer's solution was, we'll make it 4 times a year, or a certain number of times a year. And I think that's the solution, so it's not every weekend. And there's one commercial business here in town, Goodwill. Yeah, we've been getting hit every week. So I would say put a limit on it of 3-4 times a year, something like that.
Well, I told them I'd be more lenient just so that it won't be on the side, but say, I mean, maybe they only get it 1 time every month. Say 12 times a year, you maxed out. I mean, it's not like it's costing us but the time to go pick it up and...
Take it and drive it back.
Yeah.
Alternative is, we could end up with that mess on the side of the road.
I would suggest, I mean, I'd say 12 times a year, once a month.
If available.
If available, correct.
Okay, and then I did put down here, special exceptions can be made when this service is needed during the week, provided there is a truck available and advance notice has been given. Because sometimes somebody is doing something and they need it right that moment. So.
It's first come, first served.
And that's in here, correct?
And normally there are 2 trucks, unless like snow season or something like that. Then we don't have any trucks.
I think 2 is probably the most we've got on any particular Friday. Snow plows and things. So, and then we've got a guy that has to spend a whole day on Monday moving around. So I would say 2, not more than 2 trucks would be out at any given time.
And we'll say, do you want to say once a month or 12 times a year? I know it's the same thing, but how do you want to
Let's do 12 times a year. Yeah. It's a lot more easier than y'all keeping up with the calendar.
All right, and we do have in there no construction materials or hazardous materials will be accepted.
And hazardous would be asbestos, for sure. And that's really what
I guess waste barrels, paint, stuff like that. Is that what's considered hazardous, or?
I don't think paints are considered hazardous. Like household paints are not, as long as they're dry and they can pass a paint filter test. You know that they're from environmental. It's got to be dry. Got to open the can, let it dry out. It is in a liquid viscous form,
Gotcha.
and it will pass through a,
So if someone has 10 cans of latex paint, all they gotta do is open it and
it's
let it
supposed to be
dry.
dry, and I don't think that's considered hazardous. Now, old paint, like old battleship paint from 1950, that we have paid a lot of money to get rid of,
Yeah.
that can be considered hazardous because of the asbestos containing material in the lead. It's no good. So, but typical house paint, if it's dry, it can go in the landfill.
Mhm.
Hmm? Now, one thing I wish the county would do, that they do not do, and I would love for them to do, is a household hazardous waste day. Neely does one, and people can bring anything you got. And they put it on a pallet, and then it'll be divided
Sort
up
through or
and whatever, and then there's a proper disposal company that'll get rid of it. A household hazardous waste day, people use that now, and things like tire amnesty days, people will use that big time. But I don't think the county has those programs.
Speaking of waste days and stuff, is there any way we could, I was reading an article this week sometime, I don't remember where it was, but it was about how Dinwiddie County utilizes
I saw that.
their prison inmates, jail inmates, whatever, to sort through recyclables. I mean, is there,
That's one option, if we can get them on a totally regular
yeah,
basis.
you'd have to have a regular basis.
You gotta make sure they're gonna show up every Tuesday or every Thursday, and I don't know if that's necessarily the case.
I
With the
mean,
inmates that we always have, I think that,
maybe,
I saw them in the cemetery the other day, so they
Yeah.
do come.
maybe we need to see if there is a, I mean, because that's all, obviously our big cost in recycling,
Well, I was hoping not to do that. What I was hoping for is just everything goes in the truck,
commingling,
and we carry it to steps, or we carry it to a partner.
correct.
You heard Alan Queen the other night, man, plastic is just no good.
Yeah.
You can't get rid of the stuff, it's expensive, but I think steps will take it, but they're not gonna come down here and get it. We gotta take it to them and let them divide it up.
Well, I just thought maybe we can ask, I mean, if it's an option,
Yeah,
just ask and see if there is a day we can get prisoners one time a week on, or every 2 weeks on a schedule or
That
something.
was a big pile of cardboard that hit in that picture.
Oh, yeah, huge pile of
A
cardboard.
bunch of them. It takes 16 bales, about 1,100 pounds apiece, to fill up a flatbed truck. Carry this.
Mhm.
About $1,500, $1,200.
So do you need a motion for the adopted truck?
You have to go to council if
I
you're
move to
interested.
present to council the adopted truck policy and changing to no more than 12 times a year.
Second.
Probably moving second. All in favor?
Uh,
Ayes have it.
Right. Isn't that all?
I haven't, you,
I
is
got
this ordinance
stuff
for
I need
full
to do over
attachment?
yonder, that's
Yeah,
all.
I'll have to
This is the next section for you.
just do something. Historic business district, we're not talking about? Is that correct?
We haven't met with the committee yet, so not really much to talk about, other than the boundary change.
Alright. So we're gonna wait until Zach gets back and then we're gonna do something. Fair enough. Moving on.
The IRMS.
Who wants to be the hearing officer? Nobody will do it. Jerome Wilson won't do it, I've asked everybody now. Kidding me, I'm not getting involved in that.
This is for
And
the
appeal.
collections,
The
correct?
collections where we have somebody's state tax return that is held up because they owe us money, but they are entitled to protest or appeal,
Contest it.
contest it, and they're supposed to be the equivalent of an arbiter or.
How many do we have currently that are appealing?
I think it was 5.
Out of,
She's got, I think she's got 3 letters and 2 more people called and said they were gonna
So-
send it. So it could be one.
You're talking about once a year they may meet.
oh,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, it could be of the, I mean, say you give these people $50 a meeting. I mean, it's not gonna
Yeah,
be
I mean,
us up here on
basically,
council. I mean, we're telling, say, hey, Tom, hey,
But we need
you're a good citizen of
somebody,
Blackstone, we'll give you $50 per meeting.
but we need somebody now.
Who?
There are people that their tax return is being held up and they, see, we were under the
We
impression
can, I
that
mean,
the tax.
money talks.
handled it.
Darlene Nash?
no.
Don't talk about it
Get the meeting held up right now.
I changed.
How much you gonna
But
pay?
we
I'll
have
do
the
it.
proofs that they-
Barbara
yet.
Thompson said she'll do it.
It depends on how much you gonna pay, I'll do
But
it.
they're still entitled to.
I can do it, but it's not supposed to be somebody on council.
No.
No,
Is
okay.
there any way to just?
I would do it anyway if I wasn't getting paid.
What we have that they did live there.
Like, for example, one lady is disputing, it was in her name, it wasn't her signature, that our documentation that's not, you know, so it's kind of like that, so we just need a.
I'm all money talks when it comes to, if you're having a hard time, and granted, I mean, $50 makes it worth somebody's time to come sit in here for 2 hours, I
You can
guess.
recommend $50 a case, or $50.
And this is not for council members of town, this is for average citizen in
Yeah,
town.
we need somebody who's got some
General knowledge.
business acumen,
Yeah.
and just not anybody, but,
You gotta have a little bit of meat on it for them to go, yeah, let me think about it, I'll actually do it.
And maybe we can find somebody before council, before we meet.
we will continue to try to
We need
find
move
somebody.
forward, 'cause there are
I mean-
people being told.
Well, how many people you need?
But if the town.
Just
but if-
one person?
Just
No.
one.
Oh, you only need one. Oh, I was thinking you needed a committee of
Does that
about
person
3 or
then
4.
make a recommendation to council and then
I think they're the final arbiter.
They are.
is there an appeal process beyond that?
Are you
But
sure,
order-
you sure
They
only,
could take it, they could take it.
you sure only one person?
I would think one person, man.
I'd say we want
Set
3.
somebody up to get killed.
I'd say we want 3.
But if you're
Just so that
paying
one
somebody
person doesn't
$50,
always
if the
pick you.
town is paying somebody $50, they're liable to look at it, hey, they're getting paid $50 from the town,
Just give
they're
more.
gonna side with the town.
No.
So they're gonna get paid either way, whether this person gets their money released or not, we'll pay them to just come and listen to it, whether we get the tax return or not.
Right, but I'm saying, but
The
the
person is
person,
tax
but the
return
person
person.
that is coming with the,
Oh, I get what you're saying.
they're saying, oh, well, the
It
town
may
is
be a
paying them,
bribe
so.
type deal or
yeah.
something. I don't know.
I struck out.
Well, maybe that is a good idea to have more than one.
I think you need three individuals, I think.
You
Is
need-
so it's gonna make
you need
it
a
more
committee.
difficult. You gotta find 3 people now.
You do need a committee.
But
See, South Hill uses their, she said
Chamber
they either
agreement.
use their chamber or they use their planning and zoning committee.
Like the
Well,
planning
that's-
commission.
Well, that sounds like a,
They're not paid by the
Because
town.
they're
Good
not
thought.
paid, but they're still affiliated, you know.
they know the process.
They'll be thrilled to hear about it.
So maybe you could get one from the planning and one from the BZA, and then maybe just a regular person.
Or just use the planning commission.
yeah,
Just use the planning commission.
yeah, just use the planning commission.
And if you strike out doing that, I go back to, if you give them $50 for a meeting, I mean,
Well, maybe you play planning commission when they meet on these.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
And we don't play planning commission anything now. Just say, hey, guys, we're gonna add these to the agenda, and we'll do them on the same night we have public hearings or whatever.
it's hard to get people's time nowadays with work, family and stuff, and so, I mean, I can understand why people are gonna go, heck no, if it's not gonna be anything in it for me.
Nothing, yeah.
And so if someone off the street can get $50 to come sit for an hour or 2,
Why don't we say planning commission?
But don't they have to make a recommendation to council?
No, I think they're the final design.
I know, but what she's saying is, but doesn't,
She's
anything
saying-
that
I
planning
would
commission
use the
does,
board
don't
of
they?
zoning appeals, and the reason I don't want to, because BZA is appointed by the judge, and I don't wanna do anything to monkey around with
yeah.
that appointment. You guys appoint planning commission, and I think it's better that we use.
Yeah,
planning-
check with the planning commission.
I think you can, huh?
Check with the planning commission and see if they'll do it.
Yeah, I think the
Well,
planning
well,
commission,
you're on there, will you?
Well, I can't do it, I'm council.
you
Yeah.
probably have to abstain, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that would leave 4, and, if they can't come up with a resolution to it, then we'll just have to figure
We
it out.
would do it for a little money.
$50 whenever they have those cases come before.
Obviously, that needs to go before the full council, the money wise, but I mean, that's not gonna break the town,
Who's
$50
on planning commission?
Uh-uh.
You? Dennis?
Myra
Myra?
Tom Watkins and.
and Eddie.
I think BZA's a mistake because it's a judge-appointed position, and he may not like it that you're giving his people or his appointees extra stuff.
And people have to put their neck on the line like that, not an elected official, but just someone that we go and say, hey,
I can go talk to the planning commission.
we need your
Yeah,
help.
talk
I'll
to
go talk
them.
to all
I
of
think
them.
it's worthwhile.
We'll see if we can get ahold of Dennis and Myra. I can see Tommy and Eddie anytime.
Yeah.
We had a Monday night here, so. probably should-
They were talking about us getting paid. Then they said, we don't get paid. Then they said, we don't get no
So-
money.
So were you
coming
gonna
out
talk
here."
to him for the council meeting?
Yeah, well, if you guys are willing to recommend $50 every time, I don't know about every case, but when they meet for the planning commission and these
Yeah,
cases.
it sounds
Yeah,
like-
I think
Every
that
time.
No, not every
case,
case, just each
should only be
$50 each time they get a lump of them.
Uh-huh.
Cool. And if you guys are willing to recommend that,
So you're talking $200 for the town, I mean, to get somebody that will be willing to serve, I mean.
I think they'll do it. I don't think that they will refuse to do it, but, they need to get it done And literally it's once a year.
I mean,
will
if
the
you're
planning
having
commission
an
have to
issue
make a
getting-
recommendation or not?
No, I
Okay.
think it's just the planning commission is the final arbiter.
If you're,
Unless somebody wants to
So
appeal
that
them and
needs,
go to court.
so that needs to be in the motion then, when they,
It'd
if
be a
council
final
makes,
decision.
it'll be a final decision by planning.
I mean, if you're having issues finding people, like you said, then
Because if you're appealing back to council, why not just do it with council to start with?
Yeah.
You know?
I think if they appeal our decision, then it goes up to the Virginia taxation.
Maybe.
They have another step. If they appeal our hearing, then they have to go up to them.
which is good. I mean, that's fine.
But we have to at least have to hold it, take the minutes. and-
Correct.
You've already got a planning commission established, and,
Then, like you said, some years you may not have any that protested. I mean, you may not have any meetings. Who knows? Because this is your
Out of
this is your
hundreds,
this
we
is your
don't
big
have-
lump because we just started.
Right.
Correct.
Now after this, I mean, it's going to be a lot
they're gonna
less.
get harder to get.
They're correct.
They're gonna get
What,
harder.
what did you say, somebody, what was their objection? What did she say?
That somebody else had used her name or social to set up the account itself, and, you know, kind of, she's disputing the signature on our document. We have all the documentation, no, this is your bill.
Sound like she needs a lawyer.
Yeah.
Is disputing
All right, so
certain.
you're gonna make a motion to recommend to council to have the planning commission with a $50 meeting fee.
Just so
Per
we can
meeting.
get somebody
Who
Just
wants to
for,
make that motion?
just for that.
just for ERMs.
Just for her.
Yeah, this is
Put it on the minutes, fine.
All right,
Second.
second?
second.
All in favor? Ayes have it. You ready for the poll, or you wanna wait on that?
I'll get you copies, here where we're at.
You wanna go to the food truck?
Yeah, do food truck for your guy. And then, we have deer feeding as well. Food truck, zoning, not really food trucking. Here's what I got. You guys advise, but this is the way I've handled it so far with zoning. There is a, individual, I don't know if we use names, I don't think it's a big secret, Chris Urick.
Who is it?
His name is Christopher Urick, and he lives at the corner of Second Street and Brunswick Avenue, okay? If you go to his house, he visibly has a lot of cookers, you know, he does a lot of barbecuing, and not just for himself, but he does it for hunt clubs, and I think he'd like to run a business and sell barbecue. All right? In a residential district, and this is the ruling that I've made to this point, in a residential district, and that's R2 over there, you can have a business in your home. You can have what's called a home occupation, as long as you meet certain standards. You can't be modifying the outside appearance of the home. Glare, fumes, or smoke, or anything like that is not permitted to be generated. It's intended to have an office at your house, okay? It's intended for you to have a place where UPS packages can be delivered, a physical address. It's intended for an accountant or somebody to want to work at. I assume the address for your business is at home, but it's not changing the outside appearance. It's not like he's revving up, you know, tractor trailers at night and that sort of thing.
Smoking up out there and
All right.
fumes going up
So
people's-
Chris has a home. He has a business license for a home occupation, which is fine. But I think where the confusion is, he wants to cook those butts and hogs and all in his backyard, and I won't let him, okay? I told him for business purposes, you just can't do that. That doesn't fall within a home occupation. So it gets a little cloudy, because then Chris comes back and says, I'm doing it as for a nonprofit, okay? And I think we got to ultimately get a determination from Tessie. I don't think that's a way to get around it. Now, he can cook for a nonprofit like a hunt club or rescue squad or fire. He can do that 4 times a year and not pay meals tax, but it doesn't say how many times you can do it, and it certainly does not fall with any of the rules that we have saying you can do that at your home. He can cook for himself, and I don't know how I'll ever catch him if he's eating the food himself or any of that kind of stuff. We just kind of have to agree to agree or agree to disagree, but my ruling is that he cannot operate a business outside that house and cook.
I think he's come to the conclusion that that's satisfactory to him for the most part. But where his issue now is lying, where you said 4 times a year, that is it being enforced elsewhere?
Well, you know, there's people that cook stews down on South Main Street. Am I checking them? No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Do I know how many times Frosty does ribs and butts? I don't know. I've worked with him for the rescue or for the rec association.
And it's very annoying when they're cooking across from my business.
Well, they may
You open
be
the door
honest,
and the smoke
Barbara, right.
smell come in the
I would
business.
say that lot falls within the downtown district, and didn't we say
For a food truck,
for a food truck?
for a food truck or mobile, but how does and that's, I really do need to lean on Tessie a little bit. I said, there's such a fine line, and are they allowed, are they not allowed? I don't think there's any doubt you can't do it in a residential district. But if we have to go back to the folks like the Rotary Club that cooks stews periodically, or whoever, that Clark, that cooks them all the time, and good stew, but how exactly do we handle these versus the food truck? And I think there's some cleanup.
I mean, some do, quite a few, and to be honest, it actually hurts those that do them, because then you just saturate it, and it's every weekend, and it just gets.
So on itinerant merchants, that's food trucks, and that's Schwann's and those kinds of things. We have had people set up at Donito's and sell fireworks. He set up on the north end of town one year, and then he set up down at 8th Street at the, I guess, the old doctor's office. We've been directing those folks towards business areas outside of the historic district. The number of times you're allowed to do a fundraiser is the key.
And that may be.
You can do it 4 times without paying taxes, but how many times, and can you just claim it's fundraiser?
Now the question, say if I cook 8 stews a year, but it's with 2 different organizations, 4 apiece. So I think we need to ask Tessie as to which her opinion is. Mm-hmm. Because it could be 4 times a year per group, or it could be 4 times a year per cook.
Total. Yeah. So I think we're straightening out with Chris, and that corner draws a lot of discussion over there anyhow with the smoke, and if you remember, that was kind of the epicenter of wood stoves as well, and so we've been back and forth, and I think Chris understands he just can't do those kinds of things at home. I've just got to get him an answer on cooking for a nonprofit, and I really don't want to go over there and inspect grills every time he does it to see if it's a nonprofit or not.
Yeah. Was there a question about parking or something? I remember.
Parking is part of a home occupation, okay? There's also in the definition, I'll get you guys copies of the home occupation definition. All traffic generated by the home occupation must be met off-street, okay? Must be met off-street. If you're going to have your wife, like Greg Young, he parks in the back off the street. If Greg were to park his not Nature Chem, but his fertilizer truck, Lawn Solutions, out front, it's changing the outside appearance, and he's not meeting it off street. Okay.
So that has nothing to do with the tractor trailer deal, and
Tractor trailer is all separate, because right now,
is the tractor trailer considered home occupation?
no, because if he doesn't have his business located there, it's just parked there because we don't have a rule that says you can't park on the street. You can't park on your property, and I probably could go back to Greg Young and say, hey, man, that's considered a commercial truck, and remember, we use 7,500 GVW, which is the weight, and that panel truck is at or about 7,500 pounds, and it's parked on the private side. It's just a mess. I don't think home occupation permits you to cook outside at your property in a residential district. And I think by somebody coming back and saying it's for nonprofit is getting around the edges and avoiding.
Outside of town or wherever, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And brought back in.
Back and sold from that spot.
No, because it's being outside the property. Yeah. You're not supposed to change the outside appearance of your property. I think it's a bad place for Chris to cook and sell hams. I think Chris should find a commercial location to sell his barbecue.
Park the cookers in his yard?
I'm not getting that crazy, because Greg's got his panel truck across the street with Lawn Solutions on the back of it parked in his backyard too. Fairly well screened, but I think if I got to that point and fussed at him about those cookers, I'm going to end up going across the street and running somebody else off.
Well, you'd be running me off. I mean, I park.
Well, there you go. See? If you guys want to get into detail, we can, but I think it's the activity, the smoke and the noxious part.
Smoke.
So from here, I guess you need to ask
Tessie.
Tessie about number of times a year and figure out all that.
And if
Above
this
us, I would think.
does itinerant merchant, because remember, they don't have to get a license for Frosty or the Rotary Club Cook Stews, right? You don't have to get a license, okay? They don't have to get a license because it's a nonprofit and they're exempted 4 times a year. Do they count as itinerant merchants since they're not actually doing it as a commercial activity? I don't know. We've got to figure that out, and Tessie's got to wade through the nonprofit side. And I think that's where the big question lies. I don't think second in Brunswick is much of a question.
Can you ask her about cooking in the lot? I mean, like you
Yeah.
said,
Yeah,
something
absolutely, yeah.
in downtown, what is her opinion?
Does that fall in itinerant merchant or not? And I don't know what the intention of council is on that one, but I think it does bring a lot of people downtown.
I'm personally not
Well,
down
it
there,
brings
but
a lot
Barbara's right across the street. She
it brings a
smells
lot of smoke up in mine, especially when the wind is blowing. That barbecue smell come on up in my shop,
it. Made me want to eat too much.
I like that smell.
and I don't like it.
Okay, we'll find an answer, and Tessie will give her.
And
opinion
it bothers
on
my
that.
allergy also.
I think we got to do the worst of it. This can be worked through. I think the Second Street
Debacle was.
debacle was behind us, I hope. Okay.
All right,
You
poll
wanna do
attachment?
this next or feeding deer?
Or
Feeding deer.
Okay.
Feeding deer.
Where did this come from?
And on the last page in your packet
I'm
is,
not allowed to tell you, but I will tell you privately. But I was specifically asked not to tell you where this was going down.
What is it?
Feeding deer.
We got a residential area where one of the neighbors enjoys putting corn and things out for the deer, and I think the deer have recognized that as a safe, food-filled place, and the neighbors are dissatisfied with that. Chris Mathias did provide us, and I think Jennifer made a copy for you guys, a copy of an ordinance that can be used specifically for preventing the feeding of deer. I think there's already a season that you cannot do it, and I think it's September to January, February, by state law. This would apply for those periods in between. And Chris does have an ordinance. I think it was from 2016 he had provided to me. One of the council people had asked me about it, and we got the response, and I don't guess it went any farther. We provide that to the council person. And if it is the intention of council to take a look at it, or a recommendation from you to advertise,
Is it in a heavy, I mean, it's hard to.
it's an R2 zoning district. It's single-family homes. I mean, and the one neighbor says, I don't like having a deer come across my property. I'm afraid of potentially getting sick with tick-borne diseases.
Come, no matter what.
It's an either or on that one.
Yeah, it is.
Huh?
It's an either or on that. We don't, I have deer coming through my yard and I don't, nobody
Sure.
feeds them.
Yeah, I mean, they can, I mean,
They're looking for food, aren't they?
Nothing. They may run you over.
but I do think this attracts them. I think there's a bunch of them that come over there. So if there's intention from the committee, or if you'd like to look at it or review it or think about it, maybe talk to Chris Mathias. He's kind of your deer guy here in town. And
Review it. I mean, I don't think we should advertise right now.
but there is a draft ordinance, and there is an individual in town who's would like to see the neighbor not attract so many deer.
An ordinance, I guess, say put it on there and
You'll have
First
to
I've heard
send that
about it.
out with the DBI.
Do what?
Put that on with the next DBI.
Next meeting with DBI. You got it. Poll attachments. I'm going to give you each before you leave. I'm stapling them. I'll give you copies of multiples that Tessie found. She's recommending that we use the Culpeper. And if you don't want to look at them all, I'll give you the Culpeper one, so you don't have to read 6 different ordinances.
so should we just move that to the next meeting?
Yeah, they're not going to be able to vote on it today. But
Can it be a profit to the town of Blackstone? It was always questioned, is, do we have enough poles that people are attached to?
Jennifer Beck's recommendation or expectation was about a $26,000 net good to the town.
Net
Net good to the town.
$26,000.
Because we're going to have to pay, I dare say Centel or somebody like that have poles. We charge them, they're probably going to charge us. And they have an appreciable number of poles in
It'll
town.
probably just be a, you take off for this one and you add for the, I mean,
You got to count the poles.
Yeah.
And that's the end result. But we'll be ready this year and in this budget as
how many
as discussed. Yeah, that's what Jennifer Beck had told me previously.
probably threw the thing away because it's been so long.
Well, there may be a reason. Nonetheless, we're moving forward, and I'll get you the copy of the Culpeper ordinance. Okay. And I think you can expect, per poll, I think Tessie did say that there are some restrictions on charging one company and not another. You can't say, we're going to charge the cable TV folks, but not the telephone. It's got to be everybody. And she said that the General Assembly does have some caps.
Poll attachment fee, March 22nd, 2013.
Well, thank God we got that before my demise.
Alright. So we'll table that to the next meeting also, give us time to read over the
You're gonna
ordinances.
send them the Culpeper one, right?
Okay, Richmond, Culpeper, different communities. And our goal is to try to get this adopted, if we're gonna do it, so we include it in the budget. Okay. In the meantime, Dan will give me his exact poll numbers. Okay.
There's
Belong to the
several,
town.
speaking of poles, there's several poles that, where we did that line upgrade on West Entrance to go into, on 8th Street, where the old poles are still there because the
Yeah.
cable hasn't been taken off and
The
put on
cable
our
or the
poles.
telephone had moved their stuff off of it. That's pretty standard, and not unusual.
So do we charge them for 2 poles then?
I would probably say no, but.
Or they need, to me it's
They need to get
clutter.
their stuff off.
It's clutter to me
Dan's
because
got a
it's,
pretty, it is clutter. Dan's got a pretty good relationship with them.
Yeah.
Y'all need to get over here, and I think when they do come,
I mean, because it's not small stuff either. I mean, it's pretty big
you
stuff.
go
It's-
West End Road, it's about 4 or 5 lines
Yeah.
strung up on that one pole.
And just so y'all know, the zoning map is almost completed, the new one. Do you need a public hearing for that to adopt
To
it?
adopt a new zoning.
So we might could get it by the April meeting, if I can get all these corrected.
No, I don't think you need it, because all these things
It's
have
already been voted on before.
Mhm.
You're just updating them.
If we were changing designations for more than 50 parcels, I do think you have to have a public hearing.
So then we
But we're
might
not-
have it at the April council meeting for them to approve.
I think we're gonna approve it.
Yeah.
I think we have to do it.
On
No, I
each
mean the
individual
map, you
case.
just want council to,
We'll
so
give you
we'll
a
know.
copy of it, so you know. but-
Right, but, so we can have a new date of when it was,
Do you want them to vote on it?
I want council to vote on it,
We do.
because that's what it's saying now. People are saying, well, the last one was 1992, so we wanna have an
If you want
exact.
council to vote on it, we'll get council to vote on it.
But I don't think it's a public hearing issue.
And we
No,
don't-
no, I just added an agenda.
Unnecessary to advertise it. All right?
I think that was,
Anything else we can do? Please?
Do you have any more
Are you
things you wanna talk about?
Are you satisfied?
Anything else you wanna
Not clear.
jibber jabber about?
We got
Okay.
deer next week, and we'll have, our next meeting, we'll have the
Historic
poll
business
attachment
district.
figures and exactly, and then y'all can recommend advertising for a budget, and,
We have guinea pigs.
pigs.
No,
Hey, we
council
looked
are-
at, we
yeah,
shot that
council-
down last
we
week.
shot that down.
I know, I know. I
Do you
wanna
adjourn the
do, I
meeting
wanna
now?
do pig.
Meeting adjourned at 2:37.
Thank you.
You don't have any